Okay.
So, word number 4, looking at that. And the story is in Exodus chapter 16. This is the story of the bread from heaven, or the manna. I think we talked about this at some point. Manna is actually, it got named that because manna is actually a question. It is 2 Hebrew words, man and or huh, put together. And it literally means, what is this? What is it? So we really don't have much of any idea exactly what it is, but this is the story. The whole congregation of the Israelites sent out from Elim, and Israel came out of the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month, they departed from the land of Egypt. The whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Now, get this. They have just been saved from the bondage they were in Egypt. They are no longer being forced to make bricks with no straw. They're no longer under the lash of their captors. Life is now this 180-degree life. And yet, we read, they complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. They said, if we had only died by the hand of God in the land of Egypt, because we sat by flesh pots. That means pots full of flesh, of meat to eat. So what they're saying is, we had meat and bread. Oh, if only we could have died in Egypt instead of being here, because we had meat and bread. Forgetting all the other stuff that went along with that. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill the whole assembly with hunger. Can you hear it? Can you hear this?
Angry people.
Angry people. Then the Lord said to Moses, I am going to rain bread from heaven for you. And each day the people shall go out and gather enough for that day. In that way I will test them, whether they will follow my instructions or not. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they will bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on the other days. So Moses and Aaron said to the Israelites, in the evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he's heard your complaining against the Lord. For what are we that you complain against us? And Moses said, when the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening and your fill of bread in the morning, because the Lord has heard the complaining that you utter against him, what are we? Your complaining isn't against us. It's actually against the Lord. So Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole congregation, draw near to the Lord, for he's heard your complaining. And as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the Israelites, they looked toward the wilderness, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud in the wilderness. The Lord spoke to Moses and said, I have heard the complaining. Say to them, at twilight eat the meat, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread, and then you shall know I am the Lord. So in the evening, quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was this fine, flaky substance. It was as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said, well, it's the bread that the Lord's given you to eat. This is what the Lord commanded. Gather as much. And continues to talk about how much and when. And the Israelites did so, some gathering more, some gathering less. But when they measured it with an omer, those who gathered much had nothing over, and those who gathered little had no shortage. They gathered as much as each of them needed. Moses said to them, let no one leave any of it over until morning. But they didn't listen. Some left part of it till morning, and it had worms. It became foul. And Moses was angry. Morning by morning they gathered as much as each needed. Then the sun grew hot, and it melted. On the 6th day they gathered twice as much. When all of the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, this is what he commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you want to bake, boil what you want to boil, and all that is left over put aside to be kept until the morning. So they put it aside until morning as Moses commanded. It didn't become foul. It was out for 24 hours, and yet it did become foul. There were no worms in it. Moses said, eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather, but on the 7th, which is a Sabbath, there will be none. And on the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather, and they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and instructions? See, the Lord has given you a Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, gives you food for 2 days. Each of you are to stay where you are. Do not leave your place on the 7th day. And so the people rested on the 7th day. And the rest talks about how in the end they took some of the manna, they squished it all into a jar, and that was something that got put into the Ark of the Covenant as a reminder of what God did for them. So, now you kind of know this story that I think is kind of the backstory for this word. So they already were kind of familiar with this understanding of a Sabbath. Now, here's some issues. Number one, the reasoning given in Exodus 20. Why does it say in our particular word in Exodus, why does it say we're supposed to take the rest?
Because God rested.
Because God rested. All right? But in Deuteronomy passage, it is more about remembering that you were a slave. And now you are free. All right? So slave versus, oh, that's not a V, versus free. So kind of two different reasonings that were given for this idea of Sabbath. But I think maybe we need to go back and define some terms here so that we make sure we're on the same page. All right? So what does it mean to you? What does the word work mean for you?
Physical labor.
Physical, okay? Physical.
And get paid.
Labor. Something that pays you, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to put wages. You get wages. All right? What else? What's work for you guys? What does that mean?
Mental strain sometimes.
Mental strain, okay. Mental strain. Exhaustion, okay.
At the end of the week. Sometimes it's an accomplishment.
Accomplishment, okay.
We can finish something. It's kind of fun. That's good.
All right.
The stuff I don't want to do is work. I hate cleaning.
But once it's over with, it's really nice.
Okay.
It's work.
I'm going to put negative maybe there. What?
Nothing.
No, I'm saying that it's a negative idea, that if you're working is something you don't want to do.
Okay.
I'm trying to condense what you said.
Okay.
All right, so maybe a negative connotation to work. All right, anybody else? Okay. So, we're thinking typically labor or mental things that can exhaust us. There are accomplishments or goals that we feel like need to be met. It can have a negative connotation because maybe of the exhaustion and other things maybe. or maybe you have a job that is not something that you really enjoy. So that also could be kind of a negative. And all of these things are leading back to the idea of we're getting paid for those things. Okay? Does that sound like a good definition at this point? Oh, that's an accomplishment. There's a goal need to be met.
Nobody's paying me to clean the bathroom.
I didn't say pay. I just said an accomplishment or a goal.
That's true.
All right. Okay, so let's kind of hold on to that. I'm going to wipe this away, but let's hold on to that. All right, now, when you think of the word rest, what comes to mind?
Relaxation.
Sorry?
Relaxation.
Relax, okay.
Yeah.
Nap, okay. I'm sorry? Mindless. Okay. No, I find this interesting. Notice how even our words for rest are becoming shorter and easier to say. And we're almost resting even in our definition of rest. Okay, so relax, nap, mindless perhaps. Anybody else? Happy, okay? Happy. Anybody else?
It's like a time of recovery.
Recovery, okay?
Satisfied to stand. Satisfied to stand. Satisfied that it is done.
It is done.
Satisfied.
Satisfied, okay. Okay. Retirement, okay. I know a lot of people that would say that sometimes there's not quite as much rest even in retirement.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Anybody else?
It can be really hard to.
Hard to rest?
Yes, it's very hard for me to rest.
Okay, I'm going to put difficult. Okay. Oh, yes.
And
More.
not often. Like, so what would another word be? Like, you don't.
Infrequent?
Sporadic, yeah.
Okay. Infrequent. Okay. Can we hold on to those now? Kind of got that? Okay. So, I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to read a couple of things, and I want you to think about those two definitions of work and rest. And I want you to think about how we want to make them very, very concrete things. We still hold on a lot back to these definitions of what we're talking about, which I'm not saying there isn't something to that, but I think there's something way bigger and way more important. But let's deal with these ideas for the moment, okay? So if we're remembering the Sabbath day, it means to kind of observe it, to rest. The word Sabbath literally comes from the Hebrew word Shabbat. It means to stop. Okay? That's what Sabbath means. To stop or to cease. Okay? All right. So, this goes for everybody in the household. Even those people that might be staying over who are just there, aren't really part of your family. They're just visitors. Or maybe you've taken somebody in. Everybody's supposed to cease. Stop. Now, the question is, if you really think about this, this becomes a little bit complicated if you start really thinking about it. For instance, what exactly constitutes work? Is it the same for everyone? I mean, not working might mean like not going in on a Sunday to the place that gives you the paycheck. But Is work only what you get paid for? Is it any task that requires any exertion at all? The ancient Israelites didn't collect a paycheck. So that doesn't seem to necessarily go right along with what they were doing. Yet they were commanded to follow this. What about cutting the grass? Or painting the trim or washing your car? Does it make any difference whether I actually find cutting the grass relaxing?
Housework. How about housework?
Yeah, but what if folding clothes is something that's very relaxing to somebody? They don't see it as work. They find it as a thing to just, oh, I'm very organized. Oh, this makes me feel good when I do this kind of thing.
Whoever that is, I will pay them to come down.
Is it all relative? How do we know? Will God smite me for emptying the dishwasher and organizing my t-shirt drawer on a Sunday afternoon? My parents, when I was younger and living in the parsonage, I was, I've been around 19, 20, and my Sunday rest, my Sunday relaxation was to go wherever I could find a pickup basketball game. Now that was totally antithetical, that was totally the opposite of the way my parents understood rest. Their rest was to sit and watch TV.
In the rocking chair.
Oh, okay, perhaps. We didn't actually have a rocking chair, but I can completely see my mom doing that if we had one. Oddly enough, what my dad was watching on TV was other people playing a ball game. And yet they kind of looked at me cross-eyed when I would go out for my rest, for my relaxation, and go play basketball. So perhaps this isn't like a cut and dried idea for every single person. Maybe if we come at it as this really, really concrete, cut and dried, black and white thing that just fits everybody exactly the same, perhaps we're not really being very fair and honest to what it's really trying to get across to us.
Growing up, you didn't even read the Sunday paper until Monday.
So the question is if we were going to be that strict, if we were going to say even reading was work,
Yeah, I heard that this week.
then we wouldn't be reading our Bible in church, would we?
Somebody had to print it.
So could it be that we're being, some people are being a little, let's call it legalistic about it?
I dare not mow my yard on Sunday because I will hear it from my neighbor that God is going to get me.
You don't do it for spite?
And what about those of us that don't have a conventional job? Right? So you're not getting paid a wage in a conventional job. Let's just say maybe a professor, the person I'm reading this from, he's talking about, he's a professor. He says, so just hypothetically, this professor who is usually involved in reading, maybe grading, he says, but what if I'm just watching something on TV? I'm just watching, I'm not reading, but all of a sudden, a news ticker comes across the bottom of the screen. Should I avoid my eyes so I don't read?
Ask the Pharisee.
That's what I'm saying. It gets a little interesting. And so then we get into, and what about the people who, seriously, what about the people who don't have an option but to work on Sundays? Firefighters, policemen, our pastor. They are all working on Sunday, the first day of the week. What about them?
They take another Sabbath day of the week.
So that's another interesting idea is it designated to just today? Is it designated just for one particular day? Does God look at you and go, oh my goodness, you firefighter, You are horrible and horrible and horrible because you are not taking your Sabbath on Sunday. You're taking it on Monday. I know many NFL players who are Christians, and they have a Sabbath on a different day of the week because their job requires them to play on Sundays. So, do you realize that? Well, yes, please.
Growing up, almost every business was closed on Sunday.
Yeah.
And now the only business closed on Sunday is chicken and filet.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A.
And Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby.
Yep.
Blue laws.
Yes.
That's just like being a nurse. We were required, you have to work at, rotated shift,
Right?
and, that was a given.
Right. Absolutely. And you do realize that Sabbath isn't the same Sabbath that we're talking about here. This Sabbath was on Saturday. We celebrate the Lord's Day on Sunday. Now, there's several reasons why this changed. It changed in the early church because they began to meet on Sundays because that was the day that the Lord was resurrected. It also left behind the connotations of the law that had been putting all of these restrictions on them, so they moved away from the Sabbath, which was synonymous with all of these laws of what you could and couldn't do, into the freedom of the resurrection. Now, I believe that most of your good Jews would have celebrated both, and that's why you would have had a weekend. You'd have had the Sabbath, and then the day of the Lord. But the question is, now what does it mean for us today? Because we don't follow this law anymore. That law is not binding onto us. But is there something about it that points to a truth that's important for us today? And I would say, yes, I think it does. I think actually there's two. One is easier to see. It's more of a physical truth. And that is, you need to rest. It is something you need physically, is to actually have a time where you allow yourself to recover. You allow yourself to get that energy back in. You are not living in an energy deficit all of your life because you are just constantly working, constantly moving. God is saying, guys, listen, it's good for you to rest. It's good for you to have a day where you recover. Jesus said that man was not made for the Sabbath. Sabbath was made for man. This wasn't something that was supposed to be a law that, I just got to do it. No, this is a gift. Try to get you to do it because it's a good thing for you. And it also sets you apart, makes you different from everybody else who is continuing to work. And it will show people that you're not the same. Just like other things that they did to set themselves apart, to make themselves different. All right. Yes.
So, quick question.
Yes.
So if you're enjoying something that you're doing
Uh-huh.
on the Sabbath, on Sunday, and you don't consider it your self-work, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Enjoy
Here's
is
where-
not the word, though, it's rest.
I'm sorry?
Enjoy is not the word, it's rest.
Well, here's
Brings you peace.
here's where we're going to move from physical to theological. All right? So let me read you a couple of other things, because one of the things that we have to deal with is this idea that God rested on the seventh day. Okay. Do you remember what we looked at as far as rested, our definition of rested? Right? Nap. Does that really fit God resting? Did God need a nap? Did God need to recover? Did God need, for some reason, he just, oh my goodness. I'm so tired. No, that is not what we're talking about. All right, quick theology lesson of Genesis 1. Genesis 1, we typically look at as material creation. That God created things. But as you actually read that account, it is not so much about material things being created, but about things being given function. He gives the lights function. He says they're going to be doing this kind of job. I am going to put, and the waters and the earth were already there. And he says, I am going to order them. I'm going to give them a better function by giving them order. So, the Genesis account is an account of functional creation more than it is material creation. And that's important. Because what God is doing is He is setting things up. He is putting things in an order. It's the difference between building a birdhouse and starting a 501c3. Building a birdhouse, I'm nailing things together. Oh, and if I could actually create the wood myself, right? If I actually create the wood myself and build it, I have made something materially. If I'm doing a 501c3, if I'm setting up a business, I am putting things in the right order so that the business will be able to function after I put them in the right order. And that story is about God putting things in order so that it will function the way He wants it to from then on. If you read in the Psalms, it says, let us go to His dwelling place. That's the first name that they give to this place. You and the rise up, O Lord, go to your resting place. So the dwelling place is also called a resting place. He says, you and the ark of your might. There's another word that is given to describe this. Resting place, dwelling place, and ark. For the Lord has chosen Zion, another name for the same place. He has desired it for His habitation, another name to describe it. This is my resting place forever. Here is where I reside, for I have desired it, and I will abundantly bless its provisions. I will satisfy its poor with bread. Interesting little connection there, the bread there, right there. We may get back to that. So, what God has done in creation is He has put His temple, which is what creation is. This is a temple building account. He has put His temple into right function, into taking chaos and making order, so that He can now sit on His throne, in His dwelling place, in His temple, and now reign over what He has put into function. That is what it means by God resting. He has done the work that needs to be done to put the world into the order in which He wants it to be, in order for it to function the way He wants it to function, and now He is going to sit on His throne, in His dwelling place, in His resting place, and He will now reign over what He has put into function. Okay? So, that is what it means by God resting. He has done the work to put the function in. Does that mean He's stopping working? No, it's just a different kind of work now. Jesus even says this when the Pharisees argue with Him about Him doing picking grain. He says, well, God's continuing to work, isn't He? And they've got no response to that. Of course He's still working, even on the Sabbath. It's just a different kind of work. All right, so that's an important thing to know. I think I gave you one other thing here. Let me jump to Matthew. At the time Jesus went to the grain fields on the Sabbath, the disciples were hungry, began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. When the Pharisees saw it, they said, look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath. And David said, well, have you not read that David and his companions were hungry? They entered the house of the Lord and ate the bread of the presence, which it was not lawful for him or his companions to eat, but only the priests. Have you not read in the law on the Sabbath, the priests in the temple break the Sabbath, and yet they're guiltless? I tell you, something greater than the temple is here. Guys, remember that line. Something greater than the temple is here. But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. All right. Any questions at this point? Because I'm about to go into the theology, and I probably will just keep moving here. Any questions up to this point? All right. Jesus says just a little earlier than this, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me." Guys, the word yoke here, the definition of that word is my interpretation of the Scripture. Okay? Each rabbi had his own yoke, his own interpretation of the Scripture. So when read that way, it takes on a little bit of a different meaning, doesn't it? Take my interpretation, my view upon you, and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for your life. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Guys, here's the theological meaning that carries into today. What we do is we live in this. And God is calling us to step into the New Testament and to understand that that is not the way it works anymore. We do it physically and we do it spiritually. We think to be successful, we have to work. That is where our success in life lies. For the men back in this time, it was how much money they could make or how much they could get the ground to produce. That was how they were successful in life. For the women, it was whether or not they could produce heirs, whether they could produce mainly sons, but children of any kind, but mainly sons. That was how they were successful. It was what they could do to produce that meant they were successful. And God is telling them that is the wrong way to look at life. You were forced to do this in Egypt, and now it has become ingrained in your mind that that is what success, that is what life really looks like. And what I'm telling you is no, you need to stop and realize that God and your relationship with Him, that is what is success. Not what you can do, but resting in Him, trusting in Him. That is true success. And you get it wrong in the physical part of your life, and you sure as heck get it wrong in your spiritual life as well. Jesus says something greater than the temple is here. He is speaking of Himself, and what He's saying is, where is your spiritual success? Your spiritual success is in you following all these laws and you going and doing these sacrifices, and you think that's how you're successful. And Jesus says, but what you don't understand, if you would have known what this means, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. So He's calling into contradiction this view of understanding what spiritual success looks like. You think you have to earn it. You think you have to follow these things up one side and down the other. You think you have to come and pay God off with these sacrifices on the temple. But something greater than the temple is here. It's me. And if you will listen to my interpretation, my view of this, you will learn from me and you will find life. And you will realize it's not in working to earn it. It is resting in me and in the gift of life that I give you. You've got it upside down. You've got it inside out. Something greater is here. It's not about the sacrifices. It's about my mercy and my love. Because this is given as a gift. It is not something you earn through sacrifices. And when you live like me, you're going to be the same way with other people. They are not going to have to earn your love. They are not going to have to sacrifice to you to get them to forgive you. You are going to do it in a merciful, gift-giving, without precondition way. Jesus has come, and where they used to believe that where God, where heaven and earth connected, which they believed was in the temple, the Holy of Holies, Jesus is saying, no, it's me. I am where heaven and earth are now one. I am the Son of Man. And I am the Lord of the Sabbath, because you find your true Sabbath rest in me. Because of me, you now know what God is like. He is not like the other gods that surrounded you back in these times, that demanded work, that demanded your children to be sacrificed, demanded blood. Then he would bless you. No, you know now because of me what God is truly like, because I've revealed him to you in a way that's never happened before, that he is a God who blesses you as a gift. He is a God who loves you without precondition. He is a God who says, I will give you rest, because it's not about earning my love. It's about being willing to receive my love. Yes?
I hear what you're saying. Love it, of course. But I don't see how what you're saying is really going to this commandment, because it talks about remember it, keep it holy, keep it unique.
Yes.
And then it talks about your livestock. I don't see how what you're saying applies to the livestock.
What I'm saying is that in the Old Testament, at that point in time, they did not have Jesus at this point.
I love it. I love it. I'm sorry.
So in the Old Testament, they are still dealing with trying to portray God as being different. Jesus sets it into a whole other realm. Back here, it's, listen, you're going to be different. You are going to stop one day a week, because you've been working 24/7 for 400 years. For 400 years, you've been working 24/7 under the lash of someone, and it wasn't until you got all this bricks done that you actually got to eat. There really was no reward. Your payment was simply, I'm not going to beat you anymore. And so we're going to get you just one day. One day will you just stop and rest and trust that God will provide for you in that day. And he gives them a demonstration of the quail and the manna. Jesus calls himself the bread of life. He says that he is the bread that was sent from heaven. He is God's provision that proves that God will provide for them, that they can trust him, that they will find rest in him. And then Jesus extends that even further, saying it's not about one day, it's about every day. It's not that you don't work every day, but it's you realize every day that this isn't success. But theologically, it's even greater, because how much of your life have you lived to this point thinking, I've got to live up to these expectations, I've got to follow these laws and somehow earn my relationship? I don't know about you, but that's how I grew up. There was an understanding that I did these things to get this relationship. When in actuality, that is the absolute opposite. I do these things because I'm in this relationship. I don't do it to get it. I do it because I'm in it. And this relationship leads me to live in these ways. But when I finally realized that all this exertion in my life trying to attain God's favor, trying to earn God's okayness with me, when I finally realized that that was so wrong, that was so backwards, do you realize the weight that fell off of my shoulders that day? A weight I had been carrying and working to carry. And God finally says, no. Listen to what Jesus is saying. He is saying that his interpretation of this takes that weight off your shoulders. You can't earn someone's love. They either love you or they don't. They either forgive you or they don't. You can't earn it. We're looking right back. This takes us right back to the prodigal son. Both of them, the older brother and the younger brother, both were under the same misconception that they had to slave to earn their father's love, to earn their sonness, their sonship. And the father said to both of them, in different words, but said to both of them, how could you have gotten this so wrong all your life? To the younger son, you can't earn your way back in. You can't earn your way back into being my child. You already are. Can you just live in the truth that you're my son? And for the older brother, he said, but you've done all this stuff for him, but I've slaved for you all my life, and you've never done stuff for me. And the father says, how did you get this so wrong? Everything I have has always been yours. You didn't earn anything, and it's always been yours. So guys, we can start back here what they were dealing with at the time. But that's not enough. It's got to move into our time period right now, which we know more and understand more because Jesus came and revealed who God truly is and said, yes, this was just a little taste. This was really important for them. But for you today, there's more. And it's so much bigger and it's so much grander to realize that I can rest in the knowledge, in the understanding of who my Father truly is. That his character does not demand sacrifices of me. He calls me to accept his merciful blessings and to turn around and bestow those on other people. That my life isn't lived out trying to attain success in my relationship with him. My life is called to live out the success I'm already in because he has embraced me, and that is my success. All right. Questions?
I think after the Ten Commandments and all the 600 laws that passed on, and they finally put in place, do you think as they were traveling from one wilderness to another, did they stop on the seventh day?
That's another good question. I imagine they probably did, but Rick, you got something back there. I can see your wheels smoking.
I don't know if this is a good question or not. All the Ten Commandments were if you are trusting me for life,
Yes.
you will do this.
This is how life will be if you're trusting me with life, to
Okay.
bless you with life. Yes.
So if they had got that right
Yes.
for the rest of their existence,
Yep.
would Jesus have been necessary?
Well, here's the thing. I don't believe Jesus was plan B. I believe Jesus was plan A. And what I would want to say is, I think God knew his people well enough to know. Because think about this, even in the very beginning of his covenant with Abraham, they did this ceremony, I mentioned it before.
Mm-hmm.
They walked through this animal that they've cut into pieces, and they put it to either side. And the ritual was for both of them to walk through, saying, okay, I'm going to keep up my end of this agreement, my end of this bargain, my end of this covenant. If I don't keep up my end, may this happen to me. But in that ceremony, in that ritual, God walked through those pieces alone. Basically saying, I will bear the consequences for us both. I will bear the risk for us both because I know you. And I know you're not going to live up to this perfectly. And that's okay. I'll bear the burden for us both. So, I think God called Israel as his firstborn. And he said, your job is to reveal who I am to the nations. To be different, to be set apart, to be holy. I'm going to give you some ways that I want you to be different. But the job is for you to reveal who I am to the rest of the world. And they failed. And God said, I am not going to allow my promise not to be fulfilled. So my son will come as an Israelite. My son will represent Israel. And he will fulfill what I called Israel to do.
Well, he was always necessary because of Adam.
I think there were things that because, again, we have free will, and we choose to do certain things in certain ways. Because God's call to Adam was to do the same thing. Trust me. If you trust me, things will go well. If you don't, bad things happen. And so Jesus came along, and we call him the second Adam. Yet his example was very different than the first Adam's. He lived in trust, in complete trust. So, any other questions?
My brain, I'm sorry. God created Adam and Eve in the garden.
Actually, Adam was created outside the garden, but yes.
Well, okay. That was an environment that he was gifted to them.
Yep.
And if they had remained obedient, still be there. We'd all be there. And that didn't happen. They went through all this disobedience, brought them out from Egypt.
Yep.
Gave them the new order of life.
Yep.
They didn't follow that.
Yep.
So he said, okay, I gotta bring in the heavy hitter. Okay. Jesus came, showed us what we should look like. What Sinai said we should look like.
Yes.
What his word in the garden said he should look like.
Yep.
And now, so much of the world is not even following Jesus.
Yep.
What's his next?
And on that note, we were going to put a pin right there because it is 5 minutes till y'all are supposed to be in, and I'm going to get in trouble. So, thank you guys. Let me bless you. Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you for the scripture that continues to try to point us to Jesus. Help us to hold on to him. It's so easy, Father, to lean back into an Old Testament pre-Jesus understanding. Help us to hold on to Jesus even when we're walking through the Old Testament and to keep our eyes firmly on who you truly are. Open our eyes as we walk into the service and continue to hear the words that would lead you to us. In Jesus' name, amen.
joy this week?
We do have joy this week, guys. Don't forget about joy.